Hello, this is my first YouTube video. I would like to talk about roots, about the search for family history, and about the incredible events that occur during the search process, and about the things we discover about our ancestors. This is my first video, and I'm going to make it public, and we'll see what happens. I'm a Sephardic Jew that descends from those expelled from Spain in 1492. How do I know that? I guess it's basically because of the language. All my ancestors started with my parents, not so much, but beyond them. They spoke a language called Ladino, which is an old Spanish spoken by Jews in the Iberian Peninsula. This is back in the year 1000 or maybe earlier, all the way to 1492 when they were expelled after the Inquisition. And they spread all over the world and they kept the language. So the language and the tradition is what drives me to do this. And it's interesting in my specific case how Ladino, Spanish, Spain, the Mediterranean means so much to me. It's like a deep connection. And the only thing that I can convey here is that every time I traveled in the Med, whether it was Portugal, Spain, France, or Italy, and Greece, and all the countries around the Mediterranean, even Yugoslavia, the scenery, it was something that just made a very deep connection to me. It was the combination of the colors of the blue of the Mediterranean, the gray of the rocks, because the Med has many places rocky shores, the green of the cypress trees, and the blue of the sky. That combination of scenery just it just strikes a chord so deep that gives me a feeling of peace and connection and belonging at such a deep level that no other scenery captures that that sensation. I'm sorry, I'm reading about my notes here. But before I move on in telling the story of the search for family, for roots, it'll depend if there's enough interest in the subject in the comments to this video. And if there are many comments and interest, there'll be an indication that somebody's interested in learning about how does one search for roots and my specific story about the roots. And then I'll go on and make more videos because I have a long history and there's a manuscript of about 200 pages of the story of my family. But first I want to talk about the main characters of this work. My maternal great-grandfather, Abraham Cappon, which was born in 1851 and passed in 1935, and my paternal grandfather, Maurice Calev. Why is that? I guess these two people, in writing and examining and searching the story of my ancestors, I found a special connection to these two people, mostly because of the work they did and of what they wrote. My maternal great-grandfather was a journalist, a poet, writer, a teacher, and my paternal grandfather, he was a religious man who wrote a book about prayers for women because apparently at the time the women didn't know how to read and understand the words, so he wrote a book of prayers in the language they could understand, which is the Old Spanish or Ladino. I think the objective of the video is also to give a little taste of my ancestors, of these two people, to put and to put their work out there. In the case of my maternal great grandfather, he's a known commodity of people that study literature, old literature, Spanish literature, and the Ladino literature in connection of the Jewish studies. And my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, also he's mentioned someplace because he wrote this book of prayers. Now, obviously, they're known, but somehow, because of their influence in the work I did, I just want to put their name out there with the tools of this current age of ours, the internet, and through YouTube. I don't know how many will read this. I don't know how many people will be interested, but that's not important, because the important thing is I just feel I need to tell their story, and that's sufficient. I guess is I just want them to be remembered like I remember them, because somehow they strike their story, the story of the family, to me specifically, creates a link, creates a connection to something much greater than I, and that's so satisfying. It's like anger to the past that I could perceive as if if I was a big sequoia tree and I was at the top of the tree and I was looking down all the way down to the branches and the trunk and the roots, that I felt that I could see this whole tree as a unity. And I think going back and understanding your roots gives you a sense of connection, a sense of identity. This identity is not political, it's not religious, it's just an identity that you know where you came from and you're connected to the past. So let me talk a little bit about my maternal great grandfather, which was a writer and a poet. And I think the best thing that describes him basically is a poem that he wrote about in 1910, 1911. I apologize, I'm looking at certain notes. In the future, I'll do a lot better. But right now, I'm going to read this poem in Spanish and then in English, the English translation that I made, so for those who don't understand Spanish. This poem was written in 1910 or 1911, and it became public in 1992, when there was a celebration in Spain for the 500 years of the discovery of America of the Americas, 1492 by Columbus. And at the same time, 1492 was the year where the Jews were expelled from Spain permanently. So there was a big celebration in the town of Oviedo with the presence of the prince to somehow celebrate the discovery of America and a sort of redemption from Spain for what happened. And eventually Spain did more than that by offering people that had Spanish roots the ability to obtain their citizenship, and I'm one of them. So here's the poem in Spanish. A España. A ti, España bien querida, nosotros, madre, te llamamos. Y mientras toda nuestra vida, tu dulce lengua no dejamos. Aunque tú nos desterraste, como madrastra de tu seño, no estancamos de amarte como santísimo terreno, en que dejaron nuestros padres a sus parientes enterrados y las cenizas de millares de tormentados y quemados. Por ti, nosotros conservamos amor filial, país glorioso. Por consiguiente te mandamos nuestro saludo caluroso. En nombre de los sefarditas amantes y conservantes de la lengua de Cervantes. I translated this for those who don't speak Spanish. And here it is, the English translation. To Spain. To you, my beloved Spain, mother we call you. And while during all our lives we never left your sweet language. Never mind that you banished us like a stepmother bosom. We never stopped loving you as holy ground from where our fathers left their buried relatives and the ashes of thousands of tormented and burned souls. For you, we keep a filial love, glorious country, and therefore we send you a warm salute in the name of Sephardi lovers and keepers of Cervantes' language. That is just such a beautiful poem that remembers the history, the pain, but yet many Sephardic Jews, maybe few, I don't know. It's also a question of forgiveness, of love for their country. Then I also want to speak about my paternal uh, grandfather, Moses Calev. He uh, he wrote this book, I think, in 1912, and it was published. And there are very few copies of this book. I know one in the United States, maybe another one in Spain. And I was able, some people buy one of these miracles that if I'm lucky to be able to continue to make additional videos, I can explain how I got this, a copy of this book that somebody was able to obtain. In any case, he was not a rabbi. He was just a lecturer and a cantor in the synagogue. And he noticed that many women could not read or understand Hebrew, the Hebrew prayers. So in order for them to understand, but they could read Spanish, Ladino, and they could understand the prayers. So he decided to write the prayers in Ladino for them. And it's such a beautiful thing that he did. So I think by now this video is 12 minutes, and I want to stop. And I hope some people listen to this video and see this video, and they're interested in knowing the story of the Sephardic Jews, what happened to them, what happened after their expulsion from Spain, how they went to Portugal, and from Portugal they went to Holland, and from Holland they went to South America to the New India Company, how they, in the discoverers of, in the expeditions to Latin America, which was split between the Portuguese and the Spanish, many of the explorers were Jews or cryptic Jews that they wouldn't identify themselves as such because the Inquisition would go after them. So the story of the dispersion of the Spanish Jews all over the world, it's just an incredible story, and I wrote about that to establish the context for the history of my family. Well, I'll stop here, and we'll see if there's interest. I'll do some more and talk more about it.